She took home an Oscar. The world was enchanted by her. However, Julie Andrews had a sinister secret that she concealed for 60 years behind her flawless smile. The startling incident started on a 1965 film shoot. She had a spouse. He had a spouse. They had explosive chemistry. Studio executives vowed to ruin them both when rumors circulated about their covert hotel rendezvous. Julie decided to keep quiet. Up to now. The Sound of Music star at last opens out about the illicit relationship that completely destroyed her. In 1935, Julie Andrews was born in Walton-on-Thames, a tiny village in England. However, her life was already complicated when she was a baby. Julie was the product of her mother, Barbara, having an affair with a family acquaintance. Julie thought her father was someone else for years. At the age of 15, she finally learned the truth. The public was not aware of that fact until decades later when she revealed it in her autobiography. Her family's existence collapsed at the start of World War II. After their separation, her parents finally got married again. Julie alternated between living with her mother and her new stepfather Ted Andrews and her biological father. It wasn't easy living with her stepfather. He was a drinker who, worse, went too far. Julie's bedroom door needed to be locked to keep herself safe. They struggled to make ends meet while living in a low-income area of London. She subsequently claimed that the war years were among the worst times of her life. Her voice, however, was the one bright point amidst all of that chaos. Despite his troubles, her stepfather saw her ability and set her up with singing classes. She then got to know renowned vocal instructor Madame Lillian Stiles Allen. She was dubbed a third mother by Julie. Madame noticed that Julie had a remarkable vocal range and a very clear tone, which is uncommon. Her voice didn't seem particularly noteworthy to Julie. Others were in awe, but she quipped that only dogs could hear her highest notes. She put a lot of effort into her training, juggling music classes and school, in preparation for a life that few children her age could envision. Julie performed alongside her parents for the first time. She stood on a beer crate to get to the microphone at the age of 10, singing along with her stepfather and mother on the piano. She soon found herself traveling by rail, performing for soldiers, and even sleeping in luggage racks with another child star, Petula Clark. Everything changed when I was 12 years old. She met a man who owned several of the largest theaters in London through her stepfather. Julie took the shot he handed her. In front of an enthusiastic audience, she sang a challenging French opera piece for her professional debut at the London Hippodrome. Even though she was just a child, her performance stole the show. The crowd erupted. That one night became a one-year engagement. She even performed a sketch with Wally Boyd, a balloon-making comic, in which she would go on stage, tell him she could sing, and then amaze the crowd. She was the youngest solo vocalist to ever appear in front of the King and Queen at the Royal Variety Show, at the age of 13. Things proceeded quickly after that. She appeared on TV and radio, becoming well known throughout the United Kingdom. She appeared in children's productions such as Cinderella and Jack and the Beanstalk. She also had her own fan base by the time she was a teenager. Julie didn't have a big hit with her debut movie. It was a voiceover for The Singing Princess, an Italian animated series. However, it was the beginning of something greater for her. When Julie Andrews made her Broadway theatrical debut, she was barely 19 years old. The date was September 30th. In 1954, she was cast as Holly Brown, the lead in the musical The Boyfriend. It was a moment that would change people's lives. Not just any premiere. The British actress Paddy Jacques had suggested her for the role, and Julie was always grateful to her for giving her that first chance. But accepting the position wasn't simple. Julie was afraid when she had to leave her family in England. They were financially supported by her, and now she was traveling the world by plane. Her father urged her to attend even though he wasn't convinced she would succeed. And everything would alter with just one decision. She gave a great performance. She was adored by critics. Her booming voice and flawless comedic timing astounded the audiences. Julie earned the Theatre World Award for her debut, and the production ran for 485 performances. But who happened to be watching was the true reward, not simply the plaudits. The audience included two prominent Broadway producers, Frederick Lowe and Alan J. Lerner. They had recently discovered their Eliza Doolittle for their upcoming production of My Fair Lady. Julie was 20 years old, and no longer a newbie by March 1956. She was famous. It was more than simply a huge thing to play Eliza Doolittle alongside Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady. It was the part. Julie's transition from Cockney flower girl to refined lady allowed her to showcase her acting and vocal skills. And people took notice. The program was a huge success. The cast album was widely available, and it remained on Broadway for years, in homes, on radios, and even on the charts. She brought the same charm to London's West End in 1958 after taking over New York. Her skill transcended oceans, and her voice could reach 4 octaves. She then made a comeback on Broadway in 1960, at Camelot, this time as Queen Guinevere. Richard Burton, a Welsh actor who commanded the stage, was her co-star. Things became a bit complicated off stage. Later on, Julie acknowledged that she was attracted to Burton. She was attracted to him because he was charismatic and engaging. He maintained a professional demeanor for some time. However, Julie startled everyone, especially herself, by yelling a swear word in response to his last move. Later, Mary Poppins made a joke, pointing the finger at him and ending the conversation. However, they maintained their enthusiasm on stage. In fact, it sizzled much more. A performance on the Ed Sullivan program helped the program recover from its initial setback. The production lasted for 3 solid years with enthusiastic audiences. Burton received a Tony. Walt Disney was watching Julie receive another nomination, and he was extremely important. Disney realized she was his Mary Poppins the moment he saw her in Camelot. However, something unpleasant struck Julie hard before that could occur. Everyone expected she would be the star of the Hollywood adaptation of My Fair Lady. She had brought fame to the part. Warner Brothers rejected her because they wanted a more well-known name, even though her name was Eliza Doolittle. Audrey Hepburn was given the role. It was a stomach punch. Despite being a well-known movie actress already, Audrey was not as good as Julie at singing. Actually, another vocalist had to dub the majority of her songs. Julie subsequently said that she would have spit in their face if they had asked her to sing for someone else's voice. However, something better came along as a result of losing that job. She was offered Mary Poppins by Disney. That night, he hurried backstage to meet her after spotting her on stage in Camelot. He was only being courteous, Julie thought. She then informed him that she was unable to accept any more gigs. She was expecting a child. "That's okay," Walt responded with a smile. "Let's wait." He was not only being kind. For decades this had been his ideal endeavor. He assured his girls that he would adapt their favorite novel into a movie, and he thought that only Julie could pull it off. He went so far as to rent her family a home in Los Angeles. Nobody ever anticipated that the woman from a little English town would become the world's most famous figure when Mary Poppins debuted in 1964. She had never acted in a movie before, and was 29. However, viewers were captivated from the first minute she stepped onto the screen as the enchanted guy. The film was a huge hit. It earned more than $103 million globally, and more than $44 million in the US. The two movies faced off at the Oscars the following year. It was smashed by Mary Poppins. Best Actress went to Julie Andrews. Not even Audrey Hepburn received a nomination. Julie honored Jack Warner, the guy who made this possible, in her address. The CEO who had turned her down received a mocking nod. Furthermore, despite having a far lower production cost, Mary Poppins earned more money than My Fair Lady. Hollywood was now aware of Julie Andrews' true identity. The Sound of Music didn't simply become a smash when it debuted in theaters in March 1965. It took off. It brought in $286 million globally and made Julie Andrews a household name. She portrayed Maria von Trapp, a vibrant young nun who restores music to the household of a bereaved family. One of the most well-known sequences in film history is the opening sight of her spinning on the mountainside. But the backstage magic wasn't real. She was repeatedly slammed to the ground by the wind from the blades of the chopper that was filming the scene. She jokingly said that after each take she was pressed into the grass. Andrews became Hollywood's golden girl after the film won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, but there was a cost to being too flawless. People were starting to believe that she could only perform in musicals after she had recently performed in 2 popular nanny roles in a row. Julie was aware that she needed to change. Later in 1964, she decided to watch the Americanization of Emily, a very different genre of movie. It had a somewhat darker tone and was set during World War II. She was opposite James Garner as a British widow. She wasn't singing for the first time, she was feigning, and she demonstrated her ability to do so. She then collaborated with Alfred Hitchcock on the 1966 Cold War spy thriller Torn Curtain. Universal Pictures was relying on her star power as she co-starred with Paul Newman. Hitchcock, however, wasn't pleased. Both actors, in his opinion, were too polished for the gritty tone he desired. Audiences turned up despite the conflicting reviews. On a budget of $3 million, the film earned almost $13 million. Although wobbly, it was a victory. She tackled Hawaii, a huge historical drama based on James Missioner's book, in the same year. At $15 million, it had the most budget of any film at the time. Additionally, it became the highest-grossing movie of the year in spite of delays caused by severe weather and even tidal wave warnings. Portrayed a strong-willed lady who travels to the islands with her missionary husband. Despite her strong performance, Jocelyn Lagarde ended up receiving more attention than she did. She won a Golden Globe and stole the show. It was the sort of surprise that no one anticipated. The mystique began to fade by the end of the 1960s. Julie portrayed theater actress Gertrude Lawrence in the 1968 movie Star. The budget was enormous. Everything appeared to be going well, and the director was the same guy who made the soundtrack. However, the movie was a failure. She was criticized by some for being overly dramatic. Variety didn't mince words when they referred to her performance as overdone hoydonishness. The movie was one of the most costly flops of the decade because of how badly it did. Then, in 1970, her husband Blake Edwards directed Darling Lily. Her image was supposed to be reinvented. On screen she swore, she teased in a strip. The audiences were taken aback, and not in a positive manner. The film flopped at the box office and cost a staggering $25 million. It was again another huge failure. She suddenly lost her status as a leading lady in Hollywood. Ironically, she was nominated for both Star and Darling Lily Golden Globes. The momentum wasn't there, but the respect was. She needed a reset. She made her television debut in 1972 with the Julie Andrews Hour, a variety show that featured comedy, music, and celebrities. ABC hired her to a 5-year contract because they believed in her so much. The program received great reviews when it debuted. Although her charm and adaptability were appreciated by critics, her reviews did not translate into high ratings. After only 1 season, the show was terminated due to its struggles against more formidable competition. Then an odd thing occurred. The program earned a major Emmy a month after it was canceled. 10 nominations, 7 prizes. An award-winning show that no one watched was bittersweet. To make up for it, ABC offered her a couple more specials, but it was obvious that TV wasn't her new home either. So she did something daring. She started going out to clubs. Yes, the woman who sang with children in the Alps was now a popular figure in smoky bars, where she would sing jazz and crack jokes. It was a complete makeover. She made jokes about Hollywood, and made fun of her own image, shown that she wasn't merely a musical theater princess. It was praised by critics. The audiences were impressed. She revealed a new aspect of herself to the world, funny, sharp, and totally in charge. She then made a big-screen reappearance in 1979. Blake Edwards directed the romantic comedy 10, in which she acted. It was really current, witty, and seductive. It demonstrated Julie Andrews' continued star power and brought in over $74 million. In 1981, she followed it up with S.O.B., a dark comedy in which she startled everyone by showing up topless. It was no coincidence. It was how she claimed a new image and burned her old one. However, Victoria in 1982 was the true turning point. In it, She portrayed a failing singer who poses as a woman in order to get a nightclub performance. It was a bold, multi-layered and witty role. She was spot on about how it addressed sexuality, gender identity, and survival. She received another Golden Globe, an Oscar nomination, and $28 million from the movie. Suddenly, when people heard her name, they didn't simply think of Maria von Trapp. Few celebrities are able to perform what Julie Andrews had done. She was someone who had remade herself more than once. And she accomplished it without sacrificing the qualities that initially won people over to her. Her personal life grew increasingly complex as her profession flourished. In 1959, Julie wed Tony Walton, a set designer. Their relationship began in their early years. He became her pen friend after seeing her perform when they were young. She was still appearing in My Fair Lady in London when they were married. Emma, their daughter, was born in 1962. Julie was now juggling a new marriage, motherhood, and Broadway. It wasn't simple. They were separated by work, occasionally over continents, and occasionally for months. Julie was also unprepared to be a mother while balancing her celebrity. At one point, she said that it drew her in several directions. Between her work and her kid, and occasionally even between her spouse and her child, she felt conflicted. Over the years, the pressure increased. At the time, she buried her feelings in order to continue, so she said nothing about it. The burden finally got to be too much. Julie and Tony got divorced in 1969. Andrews was left emotionally spent by the split. Her life transformed when she decided to go to therapy. She listened to director Mike Nichols's advice to get therapy. She described the congestion and waste in her head as something that therapy helped her deal with. It let her see clearly, and gave her the drive to continue. She talked candidly about mental health years later, wishing that others will find her tale useful. Faith made the decision to make a change just outside a therapist's office. She encountered director Blake Edwards there. It was a beautiful Hollywood moment. He laughed afterward. It was a real moment. Both of them experienced grief, were subtly hurt, and found an odd solace in one another. Something just clicked, even though they were 13 years apart in age. They got married in 1969. Their lives started to resemble a combination of family meals and movie sets. She took up the role of mother to his children, and they subsequently adopted Amy and Joanne, two Vietnamese daughters. They collaborated at work in addition to being partners at home. Together they produced 7 films, including Victor Victoria and S.O.B. They never allowed their relationship to be impacted by the failure of several of their films, such as Darling Lily. Andrews frequently remarked that Blake's witty banter counterbalanced her more somber disposition. Prior to his passing in 2010, they were married for 41 years. She continued to refer to their time together as a real love tale even after he went away. However, there was another, less well-known but very emotional chapter long before Blake. Julie was portraying Guinevere alongside Richard Burton as King Arthur in the Broadway production of Camelot back in 1960. Their chemistry was amazing on stage. It was complicated off stage. She was still married to Tony Walton at the time, but she was already beginning to exhibit signs of weakness. Burton was irresistible, passionate, and endearing. Julie subsequently acknowledged that she felt alone and that their marriage was unstable. Daily close work with Burton triggered emotions she hadn't anticipated. Although she acknowledged being tempted, she never went overboard. She continued to concentrate on her task. Despite the powerful draw, she chose discipline above desire because she understood the stakes. She may have avoided even more misery if she had made that choice. The Sound of Music followed in 1965. Julie portrayed Maria. The captain was played by Christopher Plummer. They had a mystical synergy that went beyond simple acting. They developed a secret crush on one another behind the scenes. They were both going through difficult personal times. The burden of a troubled marriage was still bearing down on Julie. Plummer was overcoming his own obstacles. Something romantic may have easily sparked, but it never did. According to a joke made by Plummer, life just did not let them to have a massive smashing affair. Julie brought her children along. It was not the right time. Still, It resulted in a strong bond that lasted. According to Julie, they were never romantically involved, which may have strengthened their relationship. They had a great deal of regard for one another. She frequently complimented him on his ability to ground music and prevent it from becoming too sweet or ridiculous. They remained close and kept in touch over the years. They encouraged one another and laughed together. Additionally, Julie stated that they had remained close friends till the end of Plummer's life in 2021. Her profession evolved along with her personal life. That's life. 1986 faced additional difficulties in the 1980s. She portrayed a singer who could have cancer. At that time, physicians discovered a lesion on her neck, therefore the part was personal. The movie looked at relationships as people age, as well as a fear of surprises. She played a well-known violinist with multiple sclerosis in the film Duet for One that same year. The narrative was heartfelt and unvarnished. She also had the opportunity to collaborate with Liam Neeson, whose powerful performance deepened the picture. She demonstrated that she was more than simply a musical sensation by receiving Golden Globe nominations for both roles. Andrews experimented with television by the 1990s. She played a TV celebrity who marries a veterinarian and goes to a rural village in the 1992 comedy Julie. The program, which was directed by Blake Edwards, was never seen. After just 7 episodes, it was discontinued. Andrews achieved success elsewhere, despite the series' failures. Julie Andrews' 1987 film The Sound of Christmas took home 5 Emmys. She and Carol Burnett reunited for Julie and Carol, together again in 1989. Her performance at Julie Andrews' concert in 1990 served as a reminder to everyone of her fame. She made a spectacular comeback to Broadway after a 30-year hiatus. She featured in Stephen Sondheim's 1993 assessment of relationships and regrets, Putting It Together. Despite being a little off-Broadway play with only 59 performances, it was a significant return. She starred in Victor Victoria 2 years later. Her 1982 film was adapted on the Broadway stage. She performed the role of Victoria Grant, a female impersonator who poses as a guy. With more than 700 performances, the musical was an enormous hit. She received a Tony Award nomination for Victor Victoria in the same year. However, she made a daring decision after realizing she was the only cast member acknowledged. The nomination was turned down by her. Neither pride nor resentment was the reason. She thought all the actors should be honored. Although it was an uncommon occurrence in Broadway history, it demonstrated Andrews' character. After 37 years, Julie Andrews made a comeback to Disney in 2001 with The Princess Diaries. She portrayed Queen Clarice Rinaldi, a regal grandmother who mentored Anne Hathaway's awkward granddaughter. Knowing she was ideal for the part, director Gary Marshall passed her without requiring an audition. This was her first Disney picture since the Academy Award-winning Mary Poppins in 1964. Her portrayal of Queen Clarice was endearing and humorous, making it one of her favorite parts. On set, she provided Hathaway some mentoring, although she said that Hathaway didn't require much direction. The movie made $165 million worldwide, making it a smash. Andrews even had a rare singing opportunity in Royal Engagement, 2004 and The Princess Diaries 2, despite having surgery in 1997 that left her without a complete singing voice. She provided the voice of Queen Lillian in Shrek 2 2004 the same year. She portrayed Fiona's mother, a devoted and encouraging monarch. She filmed scenes with John Cleese, which made their on-screen chemistry more genuine than in other animated movies. Following the worldwide popularity of the Shrek trilogy, Andrews returned to her role in Shrek III, 2007, and Shrek Forever After. She narrated the 2007 Disney movie Enchanted, which blended fairy stories with the real world. By fusing traditional and contemporary Disney narrative, her voice created the enchanted atmosphere. Globally, the film brought in about $340 million. She portrayed Lily, the top fairy who leads Dwayne Johnson's character through an unexpected magical punishment, in the humorous film Tooth Fairy 2010. The $112 million box office success demonstrated Andrews' continued talent in fun family movies. She oversaw the 60th anniversary theatrical adaptation of My Fair Lady in 2016. After its Sydney Opera House debut, the performance went on tour in other locations. She made sure it paid homage to the original by recreating the scenery and costumes using designs from the archives. The show got great reviews and shattered box office records. The Netflix educational series Julie's Green Room, which teaches kids about the performing arts, was co-created and hosted by her in 2017. Celebrity guests Alec Baldwin and Idina Menzel were on the show. The series is a family endeavor because Emma Walton Hamilton, her daughter, co-produced it. The program was nominated for 2 Daytime Emmys. The voice of Julie Andrews had a magical quality. She made Mary Poppins and the music sound memorable with her 4-octave soprano. However, by 1995, there was a problem. Her voice began to strain as she was singing Victor Victoria on Broadway. Initially, it was only a hoarseness that goes away with rest. However, it didn't this time. Doctors discovered a tumor on her voice cords around 1997. They were referred to as non-cancerous nodules. It was a benign polyp according to others. In any case, singing for years had worn him down. She sought a practical answer, but the doctors advised her to rest. She had surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York in June 1997. The treatment to remove the lesion and restore her voice was expected to be simple and quick. Rather, it permanently altered her life. Her voice cords were permanently scarred as a result of the procedure. They were unable to vibrate as they should because of scar tissue. She had lost her strong, clear voice. It was hard to even talk. Vocal cord procedures weren't as sophisticated back then. A few made use of forceps. Lasers were used by others. There was a significant chance of scarring from both. Later, Andrews said she had never received a complete warning about the risks. Her husband, Blake Edwards, discussed the incident in public in 1998. She will never sing again, he declared, which was what she had feared most. She felt as though a piece of herself was gone when she lost her voice.